Hi there, this is Tommaso Zilio of songwritinglessonsonline.com, and we are here today to talk about what musical instruments a songwriter needs to know in order to be able to songwrite and compose to the best of their abilities. Now, I get this question a lot in the email feedback that people send to me. People come to my site, songwritinglessonsonline.com, they read the articles that Ryan and I wrote on that website, and they typically ask me this question. It's one of the most common questions, actually. It's, Tommaso, I am a guitar player, or I'm a piano player, or I am a singer, or I am a sax player, a flute player, and what instruments do I need to be able to use? What instruments should I know in order to compose and write the music I like to compose and write? First of all, the disclaimer is this: there have been composers in the past who knew very little about playing instruments, and those were excellent composers in different styles. It's pretty famous, for instance, that Berlioz, the composer, could not really play the piano at a high level when many other composers were virtuoso piano players, or pretty good piano player at least. On the other hand, Berlioz apparently was pretty good on playing classical guitar. And it's famous, for instance, to go into modern times, that Michael Jackson didn't really know how to play many instruments, but he was great with his voice, and he was able to imagine all this music and sing it into a microphone in 1, 2, 3 takes, where he was overlapping takes. So he was singing the voice, the second vocal line, then maybe he was singing the bass line, maybe he was singing the synth part, but he was able to express his music this way, and then his band was transcribing all this stuff and creating the actual track. So if you ask me what is necessary for you to learn, I'd say not much. But this would be a very short-sighted look at things, because this is what is necessary. But what's going to make your life easier? Your life is going to be much easier if you know how to play at least an instrument, or in fact some instruments. The more you know how to play those instruments, the easier it will be for you to communicate with other people and other musicians, and the easier it will be for you to actually write music and transcribe music on a score if you need to, or record music on a computer if you need to, and in fact being able to manage the whole compositional process, meaning remembering what you compose, being able to put together verse and chorus, and all the kind of thing that songwriters do in order to compose songs. So the question is, what are the instruments that make your life easier? Well, there are 3 main instruments that a modern songwriter or composer should be able to play. And those 3 instruments are your voice, guitar, and piano. Again, what do I mean you should be able to use your voice, use a guitar, or use a piano? I don't mean that you can sing like Mariah Carey, play guitar like Steve Vai, and play the piano like Franz Liszt. Nobody could do those 3 things in a single life, by the way. But you should be able to reasonably sing a melody in tune, even if your tone of voice may or may not be good. My personal tone of voice is horrible. I'm not singing right now because I don't want to scare you off. But I can sing in tune enough so that somebody can understand what note I'm singing, and if I want to communicate a vocal line or a melodic line in general very fast, I just sing it, and another musician can understand what kind of vocal line I'm communicating. You should be able to play a guitar well enough so that you can strum some chords and play a rhythm part. Again, maybe not perfectly, and maybe not perfectly in time, but you should be able to at least play some chords, because the guitar is a very easy instrument to sketch a song on, because you have those chords ready on the spot, and everybody, and if you record a demo with a guitar and your voice, everybody understand the song. And piano. Piano because it's easier to understand chord inversions on the piano. I have a piano here. Well, it's not a piano, it's a keyboard, but the point is, generally, being able to understand how a keyboard works. And again, you just need to understand how to play a few chords on the piano. So how to play a chord and how to play chord inversions. If you can do those three things, so sing a melody line, more or less well enough, play chords on your guitar, and play chords and chord inversions on the piano, you have most of what you need to write a song or to compose a piece of music. Then, anything extra from there, it's extra and it's going to help you. I'm not saying if you are a virtuoso on the guitar that you wasted your time. I like playing guitar, I like playing solos on the guitar, lead playing and all these kind of things, and I actually use it in my composition. That's one of my special skills if you want. But most people, let's say, if you're building up a basics and you're thinking, should I become better at lead playing on the guitar or maybe learn how to play chords inversion on the piano, I'd say, well, unless your music is completely guitar instrumentals, in which case you should study more lead playing. But unless this is the case, learning how to play the inversion of chords on the piano is going to give you the best return for your investment. Again, we're talking about composers here, not the executor, not the session players, not stage musicians. If you're playing in studio or on stage, that's a different set of skill you want to have, and you want to be able to play well, to play consistently, to play reliably, to be able to really control the instruments. But right now I'm talking about if you only want to compose, only. If you want to compose, that's a different job if you want. So, if you are a singer, my suggestion would be, right now, if you're only a singer, so you can only sing, my suggestion would be grab a guitar and learn how to strum a few chords so you can sing on top of it. And if you can already do that, buy a keyboard and learn how to play chords and chords inversion on that. If you're a guitar player, you should develop your voice as soon as possible. So take a few singing lessons. You don't need to take lessons for years. 2 or 3 months will be enough to reinforce your vocal cords and being able to sing a vocal melody reasonably in tune so that you can communicate with other people. And by the way, you don't need the voice only to communicate with other people. You need also because if you are composing a melody, it's much easier to compose a melody by imagining it and singing it. And but if you cannot even sing it, then transcribing it is becoming much harder. If you are a piano player, develop your voice first, like for the guitar player, and then also grab a guitar and learn how to play chords there. It's important to get all those three perspectives because the people using those three instruments primarily think in a completely different way. A piano player thinks on a very linear scale from low notes to high notes, and they can see many voices at the same time. The piano is, after all, an instrument that was also made to sketch orchestral partitures, meaning that somebody could compose a piece on the piano and then assign all those little melodies to orchestral instruments, so composing for an orchestra, but having this instrument to sketch how the orchestra will sound. The same way an artist will first do a pencil drawing before using the oil color or any other colors. They will just sketch something in pencil or something similar to get the first idea on how the final product will be. A piano player, an orchestral composer will use a piano to sketch the orchestral partiture. So the piano excels at this. But the piano has no phrasing, meaning that in a single note you cannot put vibrato, for instance. So you cannot bend a note. Okay, sure, with a modern keyboard you have the pitch wheel and the modulation, but that's not exactly the same thing. And still piano players don't think that way. A guitar player thinks in a completely different way. A guitar player thinks mostly rhythm when you're talking about strumming chords, And later, when you talk about lead playing, a guitar player thinks phrasing and scale patterns. Completely different way of thinking. And a singer don't even think in terms of scales or arpeggios or inversion. A singer thinks in terms of direct self-expression, raw emotion if you want. So you see, all those three perspectives are necessary in order, but okay, not really necessary, but they're really, really, really helpful, and the return for the investment is so large that you should just learn the basics of all those three instruments. If you're already playing another instrument, I would suggest you start with developing your voice first and then grab either a guitar or a piano, depending on the kind of music you prefer to compose and write. If you're a guitar player and you cannot yet sing and or play the chords inversion on the piano, my suggestion would also be to not grab any other instrument right now. If you're a guitar player, don't grab, I don't know, a saxophone or a clarinet or a trumpet. Not because those instruments are any bad, they are great instruments. But we're talking here about what a songwriter, a composer should know first. If you have more time, sure, you want to know as much as you can about all instruments. If you compose for orchestra, before or later you want to be able to do even just a note, but on every single instrument of the orchestra, just understand how a performer would think. If you're doing modern music, so if you're composing modern music, after you get the basic knowledge of those three, my suggestion would be to learn a bit about drumming. But then again, you need just the very basics. You don't need to buy a whole drum set. Just the very basics. Just to understand where the kick go, where the snare go, what is an hi-hat, and all this kind of thing. Just the basics. So, this should answer your question, what instrument should you know? Is it necessary to know all those instruments? No. There have been composers in the past being able to do all the music without being able to make those instruments work. But knowing how those instruments work, guitar, piano and voice, will give you a much wider perspective, and you'll be able to compose music that is much more interesting to listen to and much more emotional. So, until next time, enjoy.